thanks for joining us this week on Up in the Air. I'm Casey Laheka, and joining the new Up in the Air team this semester is another Casey Herman.
Thanks, Casey. I'm excited to be part of the show this year and share the same name.
And we're excited to have you. We have a great show planned for this week.
That's right. We'll talk about wildfires in Australia, avalanches and thunderstorms, as well as another new team member, Mike Wasnick, will stop by later at the Climate Wall.
We'll have all that and more in just a bit. But first, here's Update in the Air. A new analysis suggests that human-caused climate change may be having a much bigger impact on East Coast storms than we thought. A global slowdown in crucial Atlantic Ocean currents caused by global warming appears to be supercharging both precipitation and storm surge. Once-in-a-century extreme weather events like Superstorm Sandy and Winter Storm Jonas have become more common in recent years. We've known for a while that record-setting blizzards and other intense precipitation events have been fueled in part by the extra moisture in the air from warming-driven sea surface temperatures. The warm sea surface temperatures are not just some short-term anomaly, but are part of a long-term observed warming trend in which ocean temperatures off the U.S. East Coast are warming faster than global temperature averages. If this trend holds up, the rise in sea surface temperature could continue to escalate the intensity of these storms.
Peru's El Misti stratovolcano is showing signs of potential renewal of eruptive activity for the first time in over 500 years. This hasn't been the first time, as there have been several periods where hot smoke and gases escaped out of the volcano since its last major eruption in the 15th century. El Misti is one of the dozen potentially active volcanoes in Peru, but officials are getting concerned and taking no chances as almost 1 million residents now live within 20 miles of the volcano. Gas emissions and magmatic activity have been recorded, which was reported by Peru this week, but this activity does not necessarily mean there is immediate threat of eruption. Officials warn people living near the volcano to refrain from building onto the sides of the volcano or within drainages leading from the volcano. In addition, residents should plan accordingly and be prepared for evacuations.
A wildfire described as a tumbling wave has torn through southwest Australia, devastating a small town and razing more than 58,000 hectares of bushland. The fire, which reportedly had flames of 160 feet high, forced the evacuation of the town of Yarloop, south of Perth, where terrified residents described seeing one fireball after another. Several firefighters were injured. A group of residents who remained in the town to try to save their homes were forced to take refuge at a football field. Some wrote their phone numbers on notes attached to their horses and sent them free. The town has lost about 95 homes as well as damage to the pub, schools, and shops. Only about 30 homes were left standing in the town, which is a population of about 545. A nearby vineyard and bridge were also destroyed.
A recreational Friday afternoon snowmobiling in the Canadian Rocky Mountains turned deadly for 5 people after a huge avalanche swept through. Several groups of riders were out in the remote mountainous terrain in British Columbia when the avalanche struck. The avalanche occurred in the Renshaw area east of McBride, which is about 120 miles southeast of Prince George. 2 people managed to activate GPS rescue beacons to alert authorities. 2 search and rescue technicians who happened to be in the area reached the scene almost immediately and were able to rescue several members caught in the slide. Unfortunately, not everyone could be saved, as the avalanche had several persons buried. Carl Klassen of Avalanche Canada said the very large, significant avalanche appeared to be human-triggered, AP reported. He did not elaborate. Klassen said there is a heightened risk of more incidents in the region as a result of the recent heavy snow and rainfall. Rod Welpin, who was snowmobiling in the area, said the avalanche was 765 yards wide.
Scientists from the U.S. and Europe have a new eye in the sky monitoring the world's oceans. The Jason 3 satellite launched on January 17th is the latest satellite to monitor rising sea levels. Scientists say data collected by satellites over the last 2 decades show sea levels rising at an accelerating rate, which they say is an indicator of climate change. Josh Willis, lead project scientist for the Jason 3 mission at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, said rising sea levels were one of the factors that contributed to the destruction wrought by Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Hundreds of people died in the storm surge devastated Gulf Coast communities as Katrina became one of the deadliest storms in recent U.S. history. The rising oceans winds up causing problems when it comes on top of things like storm surges, high tides, and rare events which bring very high sea levels, said Willis. Jason 3 collects data by pulsing radar off the ocean surface several thousands of times a second and returns it back to the satellite. Any material, including water, expands when heated. The Jason 3 satellite measures the height of the sea surface, allowing scientists to calculate how much extra heat is stored in the ocean.
Rain or shine, emphasis on the rain, the show must go on. Rain didn't dampen the spirits or performances of the cast and crew behind Fox's Grease Live performance on Sunday night. The ambitious 3-hour production, broadcast live from 14 different sets at Warner Brothers Studios, worked the Southern California drizzle into the show Sunday, incorporating umbrellas into outdoor dance numbers and even an ironic line into the script, "Let's just hope it doesn't rain." Behind-the-scenes footage shot during commercial breaks revealed wet golf carts zipping along slick pavements to move the actors and cameras behind each set. Members of the live audience wore disposable rain ponchos to stay dry. Mario Lopez, who plays Vince Fontaine, said the rain began just before the show did at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Juliana Hough and Aaron Tveit were picture-perfect leads as Sandy and Danny for A New Generation. Grease Live has been in the works for more than 6 months and called on the talents of more than 300 people.
Thanks for tuning back in.
We now have a special feature on thunderstorms.
Some weathermen just love to freak out winter thunder boomers strike. Except most of the winter season, these thunderstorms are rather rare. Why does summer season get to have all the fun with thunder and lightning? The key to the answer has to do with the storm's main ingredients and development. The 3 basic ingredients of a thunderstorm are moisture, unstable buoyant rising air, and a lifting device to give the air a boost upward. The cumulus cloud will grow larger and larger as the moist air accelerates upward until it reaches the level of the atmosphere where the parcel of air is colder than its surroundings. The air moves out horizontally and the cloud will develop, identifying its anvil-shaped top. Except what happens during the winter storm to create the muffled roar of thunder. Dr. Richardson, professor at Penn State University, has our answer.
Lightning comes from having a separation of charge within your storm. And in order to get that, you usually have to have different kinds of precipitation particles. In the winter, that's a little harder to do, partly because you generally are, you have much weaker vertical motions in general. So that's going to make it harder to form.
Whether a winter storm will be a big snowmaker and lightning producer depends on its location. Typically, areas with an abundance of moisture, such as the Great Lakes, are the best candidates.
When you have a lake effect event. So what's happening there is you have very cold air that's coming over a warm lake surface. And because of that, you're getting a lot of transfer of heat and moisture into the air.
Once all of the ingredients for a perfect winter thunderstorm occur at the right place and time, thunder snow is truly a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon. For Up in the Air, I'm Marissa Lautenbacher.
With recent cold air outbreaks in parts of the U.S., it may seem at a glance that global warming has taken a vacation, or even stopped altogether. Lake effect snow outbreaks along the Great Lakes may be increasing not in spite of global warming, but as a result of it.
Wide open lakes give way to snowstorms in parts of the Northeast. Some residents in the Great Lakes area have witnessed several feet of snow in a single event this winter. While such precipitous amounts of snowfall may appear to herald more severe winters and not global warming, lake effect snowfall is actually inversely related to the amount of ice cover on the lakes. Less ice means more snow, on average. This means that the warmer it gets, the stronger lake effect events will be. The global temperature is increasing, and this affects how much snow and ice on average the Great Lakes will see.
With the Earth warming, this means warmer lakes. Lake effect snow needs at least a difference of 13 degrees between the lake and the overlying air. On average, the lakes have been becoming warmer, and this allows for a larger difference of temperatures during cold air outbreaks.
In the past 2 winters, ice coverage has reached over 80% in back-to-back seasons for the first time since the 1970s. Although recent winters have seen abnormally high ice coverage, it is on the decline. Rising global temperatures also keep the lakes ice-free for a longer period of time, allowing for unstable air to be present throughout the winter.
This very unstable air and extra water vapor present allows for large amounts of snow to fall downwind of the lakes, at times even more so than past lake effect events. For example, a storm in Buffalo, New York last November saw a whopping 70 inches of snow for just a single event.
Despite the cold and snow outbreaks and the large cover of lake ice this snow season, trends point towards global warming not only reducing lake ice cover in the last several decades, but even strengthening lake effect snow events overall. With upper level air remaining cold, warming lakes only serve to create a larger temperature difference, greater moisture, and greater instability in the air, all of which contribute to the magnitude of lake effect snow events.
Don't let recent cold snaps fool you. Global warming is continuing and affecting Great Lakes winters. For Up in the Air, we are Dan Rupp,
Brian Sell,
And Alex Sokolowski.
Welcome back to the show.
This past week, we have seen weather that has been pretty mild. Mike Kwasnick is at the Climate Wall with all the information.
Thanks, Casey. Here's the current snow outlook for the Northeast. Harrisburg and the lower Susquehanna Valley received a large amount of snow over the past week, and thankfully over the warming temperatures of the past week have really melted a lot of this snow. This area had over 30 inches, and now it's only about 6 to 12 in a large amount of the area. Our highest snow totals are up here in Maine, and then taking a look at next week's pattern, here we're going to have a deep trough building in. A lot of colder air is going to sink down into a large portion of the eastern United States, looking like Valentine's Day is going to be pretty cold. Our temperature outlook here, a little bit of warm area up here in Maine and New England, but however, this trough really builds in a lot of cold air up here in the Midwest, even down into the deep South and into Florida as well. However, out west, it's going to be pretty darn warm. All of California is expected to be pretty well above normal temperatures. Pushing up into the Pacific Northwest as well is going to be pretty warm. Taking a look at our precipitation, we're going to have not much is going to be more than what we expect. However, a little bit in New York and New England, and then a little bit of higher than average precipitation in South Florida. However, the bigger story here is definitely this dry air that builds in over the Southwest, New Mexico, Four Corners, and in the Panhandle of Texas as well. We're going to be seeing a lot of dry air here, not much precipitation. And in our drought monitor, a lot of it actually looks pretty good for most of the country. Little pockets in the Northeast and New England that are a little dry, but still our California is still suffering from a really, really bad drought. We hope they can get some rain soon. Thanks, Casey. Back to you.
Thanks, Mike. That's it for this episode. Thanks so much for joining us this week. We'll be back next week with a new episode. But for now, I'm Casey Laheka.
And I'm Casey Herman. We'll see you next week, Up in the Air.